Good morning or good afternoon. Welcome to our myHRcounsel webinar. This is our introductory myHRminute, which is our new series of 15-minute webinars. Just a nice quick break in your day to get some HR tips in a shorter period of time. This week, our topic is the importance of regular check-ins of HR, why it is important to do HR audits, and a little more information about HR audits. We will be doing our myHRminutes weekly instead of the previous long form webinars that we were doing monthly. There is a link in the chat to pre-register for the upcoming webinars. So our upcoming weekly myHRminute, weekly 15-minute webinar. So go ahead and click on the link in the chat to pre-register for the upcoming 15-minute weekly webinars. We have our topic next week will be the new proposed federal ban on non-compete agreements and future topics to come. So go ahead and click on the link and we will get started. So what is an HR audit? And I'm Britt Waterman. I'm a senior attorney at myHRcounsel. To quickly introduce myself for those of you who have not participated in a webinar with me before. So state and federal laws govern every aspect of employment, as I'm sure you know, from having a work permit from a minor to how many breaks an employee gets, how long you have to hold on to a non-hire's resume. And on the complaint of an employee or another interested party, or on the whim of a state and federal agency, you could have the doors of your HR department thrown open and the light shining in. So are they going to see something clean, orderly, and compliant with all state and federal laws? Or is your HR department going to be the HR equivalent of a before on bar rescue? You're going to want to look at your recruitment and your discipline and termination processes to make sure you're treating employees fairly, consistently, and equally, and that you're not basing decisions on things other than valid business reasons. You want to make sure you're not failing to document. Your employee handbook is not necessarily part of the HR audit proper because your employee handbook should be having its own annual update to make sure you have the policies you need and nothing you don't to comply, and make sure all employees are receiving a copy and acknowledging that. Personnel files are governed by state law in some states and can make or break you in a lawsuit in all states. You should be checking those regularly, making sure medical info is in a confidential medical file, not the personnel file. I-9 should be in an I-9 file. These are all things that an audit will catch. And just like I said, we're doing this very quickly because this is a brief webinar with a lot of information and not a lot of time. You will be getting a copy of the recording and a copy of the slides, and we will be sending the code for HRCI and SHRM credit as I slow down a little bit here. So if it seems like we're going very fast, you will get a copy of the slides and a copy of the recording. So we can move on to the next slide here. So who should conduct an audit? A lot of this is going to depend on the reporting structure of your company. Is the HR person empowered to speak up and make changes, or does your company have a highly tiered structure with HR at the bottom? If HR doesn't have a lot of authority or responsibility, you may bring in an outside auditor. If the HR level, the team is on a lateral level with other management teams, it may make sense to audit internally. If you hire a non-attorney to conduct your audit, your communications with that person will be discoverable in a lawsuit. So if you email a non-attorney auditor and say, we never gave anyone a wage theft notice, an attorney of an employee who is suing you could conceivably blow up that email on a giant screen in front of the jury. So depending on your size, structure, cost, a non-attorney auditor may be best for your company, but you also need to know the risk. If you have EPLI insurance, they may offer an HR audit with auditors that they choose. That influences your insurance rate. So you're going to want to check with your carrier before you start the HR process, because that could affect that. So we can move to the next slide. When should an audit be conducted? Are you using the most current forms and allowing the latest changes to leave? Are you collecting contributions for paid family leave? These things usually go into effect January 1st and July 1st. So if you keep an ongoing audit to-do list, these are things you're going to want to check on your next audit. So every year, the Department of Labor, the Department of Homeland Security, other federal agencies, your state departments of labor are going to announce that they are cracking down on worker status or I-9s or overtime exemptions or whatever issue they choose that year. So you generally know what has a good chance of coming down the pike and being ready for. If you do overall audits on a regular cycle and you get a wage and hour complaint one day about waiving breaks, somebody complains about breaks being waived, you're going to be way more prepared to do a quick audit solely on this issue, because you've been giving this attention and cleaning this up the whole time. We can do the next slide. Areas for compliance review: worker status, employer, independent contractor, exempt or non-exempt, all your wage and hour and earnings records, that's breaks, punch-ins, punch-out, payment on time, final pay, all that. For my 9, like we talked about, ACA, are you offering insurance to the right employees? Are you, doing things like putting executive or manager on jobs that should be non-exempt to make them look like they're exempt for overtime? Are you giving the wage theft notices at the beginning of employment? If you have an I-9 filled out incorrectly, have you attached an explanation? This is one of many things that should be included in your compliance review. We can move. Side note, do you have all your workplace posters up? That's another thing. We do partner with Poster Elite, which is a workplace posting company. You can find a link to Poster Elite, one of our partners, on the myHRcounsel.com page. Policy review. You're going to want to weed out policies that violate the law. You could have policies that violate FMLA, ADA, NLRA, apply differently to members of protected classes, which would violate Title VII. All of these policies could be lurking in your employee handbook and need to be weeded out. We can go to the next slide. Oops. Document retention. We can provide a document retention and destruction policy and a schedule with an Ask HR subscription. So if you have Ask HR Lite or you are not a subscriber, please subscribe or update to get this valuable policy. Keeping things that are too old can be just as bad as throwing away things too early. You need a schedule and a regular culling process for document retention and destruction. You can lose a lawsuit or an EEOC claim based on document retention or destruction. It is not just a matter of my files are too messy. You do not want to have to dig. A federal or state agency is going to give you just a couple days to produce your current forms. There's no time to sort through what is and is not current. Like I said, we can help you with this. Upgrade your subscription, subscribe to Ask HR, and we can help you make sure that this is not going to make or break you in a lawsuit. We can move to the next slide. Employee handbook, like we said, your Ask HR subscription with myHRcounsel. The myHRcounsel handbook is worth the price of your annual subscription. Your handbook review and HR audit do not have to happen at the same time, but they should be part of the annual cycle. Having one of these without the other is worthless. They both need to be updated annually, and they're both going to protect you in case of, like I said, a government crackdown, a complaint that's happening, a lawsuit, an agency complaint. The myHRcounsel handbook, like I said, if you paid a traditional law firm to draft a legally compliant handbook for federal law in every state you operate in, it would well exceed the cost of an Ask HR subscription. And an Ask HR subscription also includes unlimited advice from experienced HR and employment law attorneys, as well as attorney drafted documents, just to explain what we offer at myHRcounsel. And the employee handbook is the most important document that any employer can have. This is going to set your policies and procedures and expectations for employees. This is going to be the fence around the pasture, making sure that all employees are being treated fairly, equally, and consistently, which is going to protect you in the case of a discrimination lawsuit, a wrongful termination lawsuit, an EEOC charge. This employee handbook is your security. This is the most important document you have. If you're doing an annual HR audit, you need to be doing, even if you're not doing an annual HR audit, you need to be doing this annual HR review, and the myHRcounsel employee handbook is updated annually with your Ask HR subscription. So this is something you should be seriously thinking about. This is very important. We can move to the next slide. Self-audit questionnaire. It's good to have a good checklist or questionnaire for your self-audit. Again, if you have an Ask HR subscription, if you upgrade from Ask HR Lite, or if you're not a subscriber, if you do subscribe to Ask HR, we can provide you with a good self-audit questionnaire checklist. Go through each of these categories, highlight where you need to be shining the flashlight. It's not all just, did you fill out section 2 of the I-9, how you're disciplining, how you're coaching employees, whether it's consistent, employee relations, it's just as important. Think of the whole employee and the whole employee experience. Walk with that employee the entire step of the way through employment with your organization, and make sure they're only encountering legally compliant policies and procedures everywhere they turn. Anticipate complaints or inquiries at every level. Investigate. This is your guide to your employee HR audit. We can turn to the next slide. Reading the results, red, yellow, and green lights. If you've ever taken your car in for service, they give you the red, yellow, and green light printout. This is what you need to do immediately. This is what you need to do within the next 6 months. This is good. You don't have to worry about this. Put this in order based on liability risk to you. Is there a big open risk of a lawsuit hanging out there? More important to close this risk first than getting dinged on a couple of I-9s, although I-9s do add up and will cost you big money if you are doing them incorrectly, and they can also result in a discrimination lawsuit, so I don't mean to downplay them, but big gaping lawsuit risks are the ones you're going to want to sew up first. Who has to sign off on policy changes? Is the HR department empowered to make those changes? Do you need to present findings to a board of directors or CEO? How are you going to get the resources and ability you need to come in into compliance? Do you need on-demand HR and employment law attorneys to show your managers that change is required to keep from violating the law and not just a nice project? We have those attorneys. So you need to set measurable goals and establish a time frame for curing those defects. And so we'll end with key takeaways here. And I know we've talked a lot about, we've put a lot of information in a short period of time. But this is something, if you are our client, please open a ticket. We will be happy to answer any questions you might have about HR audits. We have done, we've assisted so many clients with their HR audits, and we have the information available to you. So key takeaways, do not fear the audit process because of what you think you will find, or because you think you can plead ignorance in a lawsuit or with a state or federal agency. Do not say, I inherited this HR role from someone who had her own system for 20 years and this is not my fault. The sooner you identify your deficiencies, the sooner you can get compliant and live without fear of a lawsuit or state or federal agency claim hanging over your head. Now, this process may seem expensive in terms of labor hours, particularly if you hire an outside auditor. However, I cannot tell you how expensive lawsuits and things like wage and hour claims are. There is no way an HR audit will cost your company more than not doing an HR audit will when your number comes up, and it will. Protect yourself with both an HR audit and with an Ask HR subscription from myHRcounsel, on-demand, unlimited legal advice, an annually updated employee handbook compliant with federal law and every state in which you operate, and attorney drafted documents for one monthly fee. We're here to help you. Walking through an annual HR audit is going to help you, is going to protect you. Like I said, I've given you a lot of information to digest in the past 15 minutes, but I just want to convey how important this is, how important compliance is, and how you need to bring things out into the open and knock the cobwebs out of the corners on your policies to make sure that you are in compliance and that you are ready for anything that comes. So thank you for listening to our myHRminute today. You can find more resources at myHRcounsel.com if you're interested in subscribing or upgrading your subscription. You can also email info@myHRcounsel.com. We can answer any questions that you may have at info@myHRcounsel.com, or feel free to open a ticket in our ticketing system if you are already a client. So thank you so much for participating today. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day.